Fourth grade readers, we have been working on growing your interpretations of text through theme, and today we're going to be talking more about characters and perspective. So I'm going to tell you a little story, and I want you to think about this in terms of perspective. Clearwater just was built this past year, and the first person that gave me a tour was Mrs. Inman. And we all had to wear hard hats, and we walked through, and she would say, this is where my office is, this is the nurse's office, this is where the secretary's desks are. And then she would proceed to show us where each pod was going to be for the different grade levels. It was very informative. I was really excited to see the new building. Well, a few months passed, and it was time for me to go and look at my room and start really unpacking and looking at some of my things. And the first person that I saw was Mrs. Merritt's daughter, Amari. So she was excited, and she wanted to show me all around Clearwater. Well, she took me to the art room because it was huge, and she thought the windows were amazing. She made me go upstairs. Sorry, that was my cat. She made me go upstairs and see the fifth grade pod. She showed me these little cubbies where she was excited to sit and read with her book. And then she took me to one of the fifth grade rooms where you could see the recess, the playground, from upstairs, and she was talking about the different things on the playground. Now, my tours were of the same building, but what I saw was completely different because of the perspective of who was giving the tour. Mrs. Inman's was very formal, this is what we do here, this is what we do here. And Amari was just excited to go and show me the different places that she thought were cool in the building. So when we're talking about perspective, I've already touched on this, but we're going to talk further. When we are looking at perspective, we are looking at whose eyes are seeing the story. So Mrs. Inman was seeing Clearwater one way, but Amari was seeing it a completely different way. When we're also figuring out perspective, you need to think about whose thoughts am I hearing? Who is the narrator of the story? Well, when we read Number the Stars, the narrator is Anne Marie. We're hearing her thoughts. Whose voice is telling the story? Again, who we're hearing telling the story is Anne Marie. We're seeing things right now from Anne Marie's perspective. Well, students, what I want to talk to you today about is I really want you to take into account the minor characters in a story. And when I mean minor characters, I mean someone who's a character in your story, but not Anne Marie, not Ellen. Those are two of the biggies, but someone else who helps tell the story, because they, like the main character, are helping to carry the big message or the big ideas in the story. And one way to really grow your interpretation of the story is to reread and understand the point of view or the perspective of a minor character. And then you can revise and develop new thinking based on what you've learned about them. So some of the minor characters I want you to think about are Uncle Henrik. That's where we are right now. We're at Uncle Henrik's house, Peter, and Anne Marie's mother. I'm going to read a little bit to you, and while I read, I want you to think, whose thoughts am I hearing, and what do I really know about? So the voice that we're hearing most of the time in Number the Stars is Anne Marie. Because it's being written by Anne Marie's perspective. But there's other characters that are written in throughout the story. And if you're a strong, skilled reader, you need to pay attention to the things they say and the things they don't say. What I mean is, I'm going to read an interaction between Anne Marie and her Uncle Henrik. It was when Anne Marie went to the barn. She had just realized that Aunt Bert's funeral was a lie. And it was the first time that her mom or her uncle had ever lied to her. And so she's going into the barn where he's milking the cow. And really, we don't know much about Uncle Henrik, except that he's not married. He lives by the sea. He's a fisherman. He has a farm. But let's see some of his thoughts and try to see things from his point of view. So as I read, I want you to kind of think about Uncle Henrik. Think about what he's imagining and really wanting to say. Anne-Marie wandered into the barn where Uncle Henrik was milking Blossom. He was kneeling on a straw-covered floor beside the cow, his shoulders pressed against her heavy side, his strong, tanned hands rhythmically urging her to milk into the spotless bucket. Uncle Henrik glanced over at her and smiled without pausing in the rhythm of milking. He didn't say anything. So I'm starting to think about Henrik, and if I'm in Henrik's shoes, here he is, I'm in the barn, I'm trying to milk this cow, but I got a lot on my mind. I'm going to try to smile at Anne-Marie though, because she came in here. So I'm trying to protect her. I don't want her to know that I'm really worried about a lot of things. I mean, that's what I'm imagining Uncle Henrik to be thinking. Through the barn windows, the pinkish light of sunset fell in irregular shapes upon the stacked hay. Flecks of dust and straw floated here in the light. Uncle Henrik, Anne-Marie said suddenly, her voice cold, you are lying to me, you and Mama both. His strong hands continued, deftly pressing like a pulse against the cow. The steady streams of milk still came, and he looked at her again, his deep blue eyes kind and questioning. You're angry, he said. Okay, so I'm thinking aloud, and I'm imagining that I'm Henrik. And in my head, I'm thinking that as Henrik, he's trying to be calm, but I kind of expect her to imagine that this is probably a lie. I'm sure she could probably figure it out. Anne-Marie's my niece is smart. So how am I going to explain this to her? So here's where he goes about trying to explain it. Yes, Mama has never lied to me before, never, but I know there is no great Aunt Bert, never once. In all the pictures I've seen, there's been no great Aunt Bert. Uncle Henrik sighed. So at this point, Uncle Henrik, knows that Anne-Marie knows something's up. She wants me to explain something to her. So how will I deal with this? She's just a kid. She shouldn't have to know all of this stuff because it's kind of scary and it could put her at risk. Then, still as thinking of that, I'm Uncle Henrik, he says to her, how brave are you, little Anne-Marie? He asked suddenly. So, because he figures, I got to tell her what's going on. She already knows that we're lying. I can't tell her everything, but I've got to tell her something. So you've got to think about, what is this other character thinking? You've got to pretend that you're the other character. Tall Uncle Henrik knelt before her so his face was level with hers. I think that it's not true, Uncle Henrik said. I think you're like your mama and like your papa and like me, frightened but determined, and if the time came to be brave, I am quite sure you would be very, very brave. Because he knows she can handle the truth. I'm shutting the book so you know that this is like Uncle Henrik. Uncle Henrik knows she can handle it. She can be brave. He can't protect her for forever. She's gonna have to grow up fast. But he added, it's much easier to be brave if you do not know everything. And so your mama does not know everything, and neither do I. We only know what we need to know. Do you understand what I am saying? He asked, looking into her eyes. So think what he's thinking. I mean, what do you know about Uncle Henrik? He's trying to protect his niece. He loves his sister. He's worried about them. They're about to do something scary and something risky. So he's changed her life by telling her the truth, but there really is no choice at this part. So right now you're taking into the account the minor characters. By looking at another person's perspective, you can dig deeper into the true meaning of what is going on in a text. I'm telling you, this is deeper thinking than what we've asked you to do before. Now, when you do this, I want you to think of our homework from yesterday. Just as you grew your idea of theme, I want you to grow your ideas of character. And I'm saying think harder. Some of you wrote sentences and they were good with your basic theme. Like, for example, Anne-Marie is brave. I think we could all agree that Anne-Marie is brave. But at this point, after thinking about her interaction with Uncle Henrik and what she knows is going on, that there's lying happening in order to prepare her to save others, if we really tweak that sentence, we can say, Anne-Marie is forced to be unusually brave. You're not being asked to do these kinds of scary things, but she's forced to right now to save her friend. She's being forced to be unusually brave for a child of 10. Shoot, even the adults are being forced to be unusually brave. So now what I want you to do, I'm sending you off to read your book, and this is one of the last times that I'll be videotaping our reading together. What I want you to do when you head off with your book, I want you to go back into the text, and I want you to look at the perspective of a minor character. Maybe make a list of the minor characters and then circle the one that you think you can tell the most about. Give it a try. Look at it through another lens. It's been fun teaching reading to you. I'm proud of all of you, and I can't wait to see the work that you've come up with.